Okay, let's think about this. Imagine a quiet personal habit. Something, many people consider perfectly normal, maybe even good for you. But what if that private ritual, especially maybe for men over 50, is subtly, quietly undermining intimacy, reshaping relationships without you even realizing? It's a really personal topic, isn't it? Often met with silence, maybe even a bit of shame. But today, we want to approach it differently.
Yeah.
With science and understanding.
Exactly. It's a question that really does touch on our core well-being, but you're right, it's hardly ever discussed openly. And yet there's a surprisingly nuanced, science-backed answer waiting for us. Understanding how our brains, our bodies adapt to habits, even the really private ones, well, it's maybe more impactful than you might think.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this complex relationship, between solo sexual habits and overall sexual health, especially for men over 50. We're going to try and distill some really vital insights, get straight to what actually matters here. And hey, if you find this valuable, if you want more deep dives like this that cut through the noise, definitely hit that subscribe button on this channel. So let's tackle this head on. For men over 50, is masturbation a helpful tool, for staying sexually active? Or can it quietly become a real hindrance to a healthy, fulfilling sex life?
Well, look, the simple good or bad answer, it just doesn't really exist here. It truly, truly depends on how it's done, and maybe even more critically, why it's being done. See, as men navigate their 50s, 60s, and beyond, there are antral physiological shifts happening. We all know this. We're talking changes in hormone levels like testosterone, changes in blood circulation, even the quality and reliability of erections themselves. And these shifts, well, they just make understanding the real impact of our sexual habits more critical than ever.
And it's not just age, right? The whole landscape of sexuality has shifted so dramatically, especially like the last couple of decades. Think about it. Increased stress, big changes in routines, maybe feeling more isolated sometimes. All these things can lead us to change our sexual habits. And for many mature men, that might mean turning to solo activities more often, maybe as a coping thing or just convenience.
And here's probably the biggest game changer: unlimited, constantly available online pornography. This has introduced something neuroscientists call a supernormal stimulus.
Oh.
Okay, think of it like this. A supernormal stimulus is basically an exaggerated artificial version of a natural trigger. And the tricky part is your brain finds it way more appealing than the real thing. It's like our ancestors craving sugar from a rare, ripe fruit, good energy source, right? Versus grabbing a candy bar today. It's just this super concentrated, intense version. Our biology wasn't really designed for that constant hit.
Right, so applying that to pornography, it acts the same way, like a supernormal hit for sexual desire. It's this constant stream of newness, impossible situations, exaggerated performances, stuff that real-life intimacy, with all its, beautiful complexities and nuances, it just can't compete with on that level. It offers an intensity, a variety. That our biology maybe isn't equipped to handle constantly.
Exactly. And when that supernormal stimulus becomes a regular part of a man's sexual routine, particularly after 50, it can absolutely start to hinder rather than help his overall sexual health.
Okay, so we've got this idea of the supernormal stimulus, but how does it actually become a hindrance? How does it translate into problems? I'm guessing it has something to do with how our brains work, how they adapt and, get rewired.
Yeah, you've hit it right on the head. Your brain is incredibly adaptive. It's constantly building and strengthening neural pathways based on what you do repeatedly. So when you engage in solo sexual habits, especially in a very consistent way, you're essentially training your brain, training it to respond to a very specific set of stimuli. This is where we run into what I sometimes call the stimulus gap. And it kind of breaks down into two parts. First, there's the physical gap. Think about solo masturbation. You have total control, right? Grip, pressure, speed, rhythm. It's perfectly calibrated by you, for you. It's a highly controlled, predictable experience, often optimized for, an efficient orgasm. But partnered sex, that's totally different. It's responsive, it's dynamic, it's unpredictable. It involves subtle, varied sensations from another person's body. So if your brain gets trained on that high-intensity, specific solo stimulation, the natural, more nuanced sensations of real intimacy can start to feel, frankly, underwhelming. Your brain is sort of waiting for this signal, this specific intensity that just doesn't arrive in the same way with the partner, and that can make it hard to get or keep an erection. Now layer pornography onto that, and you create an even wider psychological gap. Porn conditions the brain to link arousal with visual novelty, with fantasy scenarios. Those rapid-fire scene changes, the often unrealistic situations, they provide this big dopamine rush. But it's totally detached from any real emotional connection. So in a real-life sexual encounter, those artificial triggers, they're just not there. There's no script, no director, no endless stream of new faces. There's just the authentic, often subtle connection with another person. And the brain, if it's gotten used to that supernormal porn stimulus, can genuinely struggle to find arousal in that authentic, intimate setting.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, for someone listening right now, what are the actual practical consequences of this stimulus gap you're describing on a man's sexual health and, crucially, his relationships?
Well, these gaps, the physical and the psychological, they can lead to some very real and often quite distressing sexual problems. First, you often see erectile dysfunction, or ED, where, a man is physically with his partner, but his brain needs that different, more intense stimulation it's been conditioned to expect, so it doesn't respond effectively. Second, and this is a big one, ejaculation disorders. This can show up as delayed ejaculation, where it takes a very long time to reach orgasm with a partner, or even anorgasmia, which is the inability to reach orgasm at all during partnered sex. You might be able to get and maintain an erection, but you just can't finish because that stimulation threshold has been set so high by the solo habits that the sensations of partnered sex simply aren't enough to cross the finish line, so to speak. And third, something maybe less expected, hypoactive sexual desire or low libido. It sounds counterintuitive, right? But if a man's main sexual outlet becomes this super high-intensity solo experience, his actual desire for real-world intimacy can start to fade. Real sex might begin to feel like, too much work. Or maybe a potential disappointment compared to the guaranteed easy fantasy. So he might lose interest, not necessarily in sex itself, but definitely in having sex with a partner.
Okay, that paints a pretty clear picture. So when does this private habit, this solo activity, cross the line? When does it go from being maybe benign or even healthy in some ways to a genuine problem that's causing real distress?
I think the key difference really boils down to choice versus compulsion. A healthy habit is something you choose to do. You feel in control of it. A compulsion, though, that's different. It's an urge that feels really difficult, maybe even impossible to control, even when you kind of know it's leading to negative consequences. So the habit becomes a problem when it starts actively interfering with your life. Ask yourself, are you choosing it over spending quality time with your partner? Is it messing with your sleep, your work, your general mood? Do you feel maybe a sense of shame or anxiety after doing it? Those are all pretty significant signs that it might have shifted into compulsive territory. And, very often this kind of compulsion is tied to underlying emotional stuff. It can become a way to cope with stress, loneliness, anxiety, maybe depression, which then creates this really vicious cycle, right? You feel bad, so you turn to the habit for a quick escape or relief. But then the habit itself starts causing more problems in your relationship, your self-esteem, which in turn makes you feel worse. Breaking that cycle is absolutely key. And often that means really addressing those root emotional trips head on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, whenever we talk about something this sensitive, this personal, there are always so many myths floating around, aren't there? Old wives' tales, things people just repeat. What are some of the biggest misconceptions we really need to sort of tackle here, especially for men over 50?
Oh, definitely. We absolutely need to debunk a couple of critical myths that are really common out there. The first one is about ejaculation frequency and prostate cancer. You hear this a lot, the claim that ejaculating frequently lowers your risk of prostate cancer. Now, while it's true that a few observational studies suggested a possible link, it is crucial, absolutely crucial to understand this is not proven cause and effect. Correlation is not causation, as they say. As of right now, no major medical organization, not the American Cancer Society, nobody reputable recommends frequent ejaculation as a way to prevent cancer. The proven ways to protect your prostate health, they're about maintaining a healthy lifestyle, eating well, getting regular medical checkups with your doctor. So look, while masturbation isn't harmful to the prostate, it really shouldn't be seen as some kind of medical treatment or preventative measure. Okay, the second big myth, that masturbation primes the engine and keeps libido high. The idea that keeping the system running keeps your desire strong. And look, in moderation, yes, solo sex can certainly be part of a perfectly healthy sexual life, no question. But as we've been discussing, when it becomes excessive or when it's heavily reliant on something like pornography, it can actually do the exact opposite. It can lead to desensitization. Think of it like constantly eating super sweet candy. After a while, your taste buds adapt, right? And then a naturally sweet apple might suddenly taste bland or uninteresting. So instead of priming the engine for a drive with your partner, this intense solo experience can actually make you lose interest in even leaving the garage. because that solo journey has become so much more intense, so much more reliably satisfying perhaps, than the perceived effort or unpredictability of a real journey with someone else.
That's a really powerful analogy. And it leads perfectly into something else I know many men worry about, which is this idea of penile disuse, the whole use it or lose it concept. Is there truth to that?
Well, to a degree, yes, there is some truth to it. Regular blood flow is absolutely essential. It's vital for maintaining the health, the elasticity of the tissues within the penis. So a lack of regular erections over a prolonged period, yeah, that can contribute to tissue changes. It can lead to fibrosis, potentially worsening erectile function over time. Those tissues really do need that regular oxygenation, that regular expansion just to stay healthy and responsive.
Okay, so if relying heavily on certain kinds of masturbation, especially with porn, isn't the ideal solution for that, and yet use it or lose it is a real physical concern, what are the healthier ways, the medically recognized alternatives to maintain penile health without creating that stimulus gap we talked about, the one that harms intimacy?
Right, that's the crucial question. And thankfully, yes, there are concrete medically recognized options that support your physical health without negatively rewiring your brain's software, so to speak. A fantastic place to start is with pelvic floor exercises. You might know them as Kegels. And these are absolutely not just for women. For men, they strengthen the muscles right at the base of the penis. These are the muscles responsible for trapping blood to maintain an erection and also for controlling ejaculation. So stronger pelvic floor muscles can mean better erectile rigidity and better ejaculatory control. It's foundational. Another option, a therapeutic one when used correctly and ideally under a doctor's guidance, is a vacuum erection device, a VED. Now, a VED isn't just for getting an erection right before sex. It can actually be used as a form of physical therapy. You use it to gently draw blood into the penis for maybe several minutes a day. This promotes tissue oxygenation, keeps those tissues healthy and flexible. Think of it like physical therapy for any other muscle group. And then, for a more guided, maybe comprehensive approach, you could consider pelvic physiotherapy. A trained pelvic floor physical therapist can assess your specific situation and create a personalized program. Exercises, techniques, really optimizing your entire pelvic function. They can address specific muscular or circulatory issues that might be contributing to sexual health concerns. These aren't just quick fixes, you see. They are proactive ways to invest in your long-term sexual vitality and connection. They help you reclaim control, physically and mentally.
Wow. Okay, this has been, far more nuanced than I think maybe many of us initially thought. It's definitely not just a simple good or bad thing, is it?
Not at all. And to circle back to that original question, can solo habits help or hinder after 50? I think the core insight, the real takeaway, is that it really is all about balance, awareness, and perhaps most importantly, intent. When it's a conscious choice, done in moderation as part of a varied and connected sexual life, it's perfectly healthy. But when it slips into being a compulsive, high-intensity habit, especially one that's dependent on artificial stimuli like pornography, then yes, it can absolutely hinder your sexual function, your desire for genuine connection, and ultimately, the health of your relationships. The key really is prioritizing that genuine intimacy, that real connection, and exploring these healthier, proven methods we've discussed to maintain your physical function alongside that.
That's great advice. And look, if any of this has resonated with you listening today, if you feel like maybe your habits are holding you back, please don't hesitate. Talk to a urologist, talk to a therapist. These are incredibly common health concerns people face. And the good news is, thankfully, there are real, manageable solutions out there.
Absolutely. And maybe, just maybe, the most important question to ponder as you reflect on this deep dive is this. In what areas of your life, maybe beyond just this topic, might you be unconsciously accepting a kind of supernormal stimulus, something that feels intensely gratifying right now in the short term, but might actually be hindering your ability to connect with the more nuanced, maybe more challenging, but ultimately more fulfilling realities of the world and the people around you?
That is a truly profound thought to end on. Thank you so much for walking us through all that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back again soon with another insightful session.